Howdy, and welcome to episode 41 of the Back of the End Zone podcast. I'm Josh Ryzik here with Bryant Koleski. And, man, we've got a good show today, Bryant, because obviously last week there was the Reese's Senior Bowl that we both covered. We were able to be there for the podcast. We were on the field every single practice day, getting a look at all these players. And
it was a blast. We cannot thank the Senior Bowl enough for allowing us to do what we did last week. Being able to interview players, interact with other media members, just get the whole overall experience. Can't thank, like I said, the Senior Bowl enough. Jim Nagy, Molly Middleton, and everybody involved with that. Simone Eli, Emily Cochran, main ones that really helped us get there. But seriously though, it was such a great experience.
Oh no, it was a blast, and it was just fun to be able to see in person up front all of the guys that really stood out, and then the guys that didn't really stand out as much as you thought they would, because there was quite a few players. We won't get into it right now. We'll get into it in segment one. But there were a lot of guys that really jumped off the page that had the opportunity to boost their draft stock.
And to see these players up close, and Jake mentioned this in his show when they on Monday when they were doing their Senior Bowl weekend. You really don't really see the sheer size of these players and what they can do until you see it up close. And we got just that. I mean, there's a couple of guys that right off the jump, size-wise, just freaks. Johnny Wilson from Florida State. I mean, tallest receiver I think I've ever seen in my life at 6'7".
Yeah, and seeing him on the field in person, up close and personal, like it was like I don't think people realize how big he is.
It was like looking up at like a skyscraper.
Yeah, seriously, like dude was so much taller, so much bigger than every single corner there. And
the guy you got to talk to, Javondre Sweat from Texas.
Javondre, yeah, he was huge.
Mammoth.
Yeah, like 6'7", like 360 pounds. Like, dude was big. Dude was a large human being. I got a picture with him, and I got lucky because Bryant took the picture in 0.5 on my phone, so I actually look kind of similar in size to him. So it was nice.
Don't flatter yourself, buddy.
Oh, I'm flattering myself, man.
He would manhandle you.
Oh, I trust, dude. He manhandled every offensive lineman he came up against. But I mean, enough with this talk. Obviously, after Senior Bowl talk, we're gonna get right into
Super Bowl preview.
Yeah, 100%. Get right into the Super Bowl, right into all that's to come. This Super Bowl, obviously, Brock Purdy, kind of the questions around that and whatnot, and obviously Pat Mahomes and maybe a potential Travis Kelce proposal at the end of the game. We'll see. We're gonna get right into all that, and
we might even do a mock draft at the end of this.
No mock drafts. No mock drafts.
Well, I mean, we'll see.
No mock drafts. Don't listen to him. We'll see. But I mean, let's get right into it with some Senior Bowl recap. Some guys that stood out. Let's get right into segment one. All right, before we dive right into segment one with Senior Bowl prep, we would like to thank one of our sponsors, 251 Pool Works, family owned and operated. 251 Pool Works offers pool cleaning, maintenance, and repair. They serve the greater Mobile, Baldwin County, and Pensacola areas, and if you're needing any monthly pool cleaning service and or repair, give them a call at 251-978-7736 for the Pool Works. Can't thank them enough. And Bryant, I know you're already going to say it. It's getting warmer outside, man.
Well, I mean, the groundhog predicted an early spring, so you got to get those pools cleaned and everything shaped up.
Brian actually has a pet groundhog in his apartment here on campus.
Yeah.
His name's Tubby, so I'm just playing. But, not even speaking of groundhog, speaking of spring, that means we're one step closer to the draft, man. And, obviously Super Bowl weekend this weekend. And we just got through Senior Bowl weekend, 2 bowls that we're talking about today in this week's episode. But, man, what a week it was at the Senior Bowl. Lots of guys performed, lots of guys underperformed. But, Brian, let's start talking about the guys that really performed.
Yeah, one for me is the kid from Toledo, the Mitchell kid from Toledo, a cornerback. He didn't do a lot of press coverage, but they had him do some during the week, and he didn't play in the game. A lot of these guys we were talking about probably opted, were some of the ones that opted out of the game. But Mitchell from Toledo, he was already a fringe first-round pick, but at Toledo they asked him to do a lot of zone, didn't play a lot of man, and so he was playing a lot of man against some of these guys like Roman Wilson, Tez Walker, Javon Baker, Brendan Rice, and he locked down a lot of them. There was one time he got beat by Roman Wilson, and he actually slipped. So he did pretty well. He picked off or he got an interception off Brendan Rice one time, covering Brendan Rice one time. That was really good.
The thing about Quinyon Mitchell, I'm pretty sure his first name is Quinyon, if I'm correct. It is. The thing about him, too, is you got to think the three best quarterbacks that were hypothetically in the Senior Bowl were on the same practice team, on the national team, as Quinyon Mitchell. So, he's going up against some solid receivers. I think there may have been a couple better receivers on the American team between, like, SEC schools and Ricky Purcell and Johnny Wilson.
Ricky Purcell was on the national team, so he was going up against him too.
Oh yeah, you're actually right. You're right. I messed that up. But
you're good.
The thing about it is he was going up against quarterbacks like Bo Nix and Michael Penix, and obviously yes, like Bo Nix really performed really well. Penix was spotty. Penix still performed well, and then Sam Hartman was kind of ass. No offense. No offense, Sam Hartman. You've got beautiful hair, but you very much so underperformed, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But Quinyon Mitchell, man, like really did show out. Really boosted his draft stock, especially coming from a Group of 5 school. He performed, man.
And you know, I was listening to Mel Kiper, and he might be in that CB1 type status, along with like Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terrion Arnold, Cooper DeJean from Iowa. So he might have really boosted his draft stock. I mean, I think he's a mid first round pick, and you know, if the Broncos were to, you know, say like for my team, like if we need a corner opposite of Surtain, I wouldn't mind him if we drafted that guy. But and then another player that he covered, Roman Wilson. I mean, you didn't get to see a lot of Roman Wilson's explosiveness at Michigan because of the run-heavy offense.
Exactly.
And he still had over, 700 yards?
Yeah, so Roman Wilson in all 4 years that he was at Michigan never had a year where he had over 800 yards receiving because of the run-heavy offense. Obviously, and I was talking about this with one of my friends back home who's a huge Michigan fan, Matt McGraw. Obviously, Roman Wilson did have really big plays at Michigan, but it was very rare that it happened. Obviously, yes, he performed, had a great game in the Rose Bowl, had a great national championship game as well, but he never really had those true opportunities because of the fact that Michigan ran the ball 9 times out of 10, and obviously J.J. McCarthy didn't pass that much. Like, you think there was like one time during the season where J.J. McCarthy went like 6 quarters with throwing like 5 pass attempts, and it's like, so Roman Wilson just didn't get that spotlight. And at the Senior Bowl, 1-on-1s, 7-on-7, full scrimmage before the game,
he was cooking.
I mean, we were standing right there on one of the 1-on-1s where he was going up against I can't remember, it may have been Quinyon Mitchell. And Roman Wilson literally got a one-handed catch on the sideline, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, did he really just catch that?" And like he performed and had scouts on watch and on notice this weekend.
And Roman Wilson I think he's like a day 2 pick, but I mean he could still maybe go fringe first round. We know how scarce receivers are, or well, not scarce, but there's a bunch of receivers in every draft, and you can never have too many receivers, especially when the league is transitioning more to offense than it is defense.
Yep.
But and then quarterback for me I was gonna go Bo Nix because, I've stressed this enough over the course of the season and our championship pick'em. Bo Nix has been a guy that I have gained a lot of respect for, just because of the journey he's been through. He's been through a lot of adversity, got dragged through the mud by media and especially in Auburn and maybe some Oregon, when he lost to Georgia that one time. But he didn't do a lot of crazy stuff, but he did have some good throws. I felt like he displayed his accuracy very well. He missed a couple, missed one to Roman Wilson.
The thing though is that he performed to where he needed to be and then some.
Yeah.
And there were some guys where I feel like, and we talked about this earlier, is that there were guys like Michael Penix. I don't think Michael Penix hurt his draft stock much. I think he may have hurt it a little bit, but Michael Penix just checked the boxes. And I think for draft stock wise, like Bo Nix checked the boxes and then a few more that he didn't need to check, which is what helped his draft stock a lot. Whereas guys like Sam Hartman really hurt it because he didn't even check all the boxes. But like that's the thing with these quarterbacks too, man. And this is such a quarterback heavy draft class where it's like
compared to last year, last couple of years, and this also isn't this isn't even talking about the off the field process. We don't even see the off the field process, the interviews they go through, film study, film questioning, stuff like that. They all get to do that kind of stuff down here in Mobile when they're in the Senior Bowl, and then in a month when they go to the Combine, it's the same ordeal. And so you really, I think, the Senior Bowl is very competitive, especially during the practices, but you still don't – the reps are limited, And
Yeah, they are.
And so those are the winners to me on the national team.
I think one more player on the national team that was a winner prior to his bicep injury, which you obviously know where I'm going here, is Rasheen Ali. Rasheen Ali out of Marshall, man. I mean, he was very solid in the Sun Belt, but also there were some spotty games. But in the Senior Bowl, man, day one practice, he came out swinging, man. Like, he was literally hitting holes that he shouldn't have been able to get up. He was juking. Like, dude was very fast, had very quick feet, and was able to get past defenders and whatnot. And it sucked to see on day two him rupture his bicep or whatever it was very early, because I think he boosted his draft stock immensely, but now he's out 4 to 5 months. So,
and there were a bunch of other guys that I hadn't mentioned. I'm going to briefly mention the center from Oregon did a pretty good job. Latu from UCLA, big dude. Got a chance to interview him. He was great. There was a safety from Miami that did pretty well. Linebacker from NC State, Marshawn Lloyd, running back from USC, had a great week. The national team had a lot of bright players, and Luke McCaffrey was one of them too.
Yeah, he was one of them. So.
And then of course we got to see Brendan Rice. Ran into Jerry Rice on the sidelines. That was pretty cool moment.
Too, yeah.
T.O.
Yep. But going over to the American team, if you're ready for that, you probably already know who I'm going to say. One guy that stood out to me, and he stood out to everybody, obviously, just because of his story. But Cody Schrader out of Mizzou. You gotta talk about a guy that has faced adversity throughout his whole entire career, going from Truman State, a Division II school in Missouri, to then transferring to Mizzou as a walk-on. He's from St. Louis, so transferred to Mizzou as a walk-on. His childhood dream school. Gets there as a walk-on, has like 700-something yards, averaged like 3 yards a carry in his first year at Mizzou. And then this past year, goes from walk-on, D2 to walk-on, to All-American, All-SEC, like first-team All-SEC, first-team All-American, not even second or third team. Literally was a freaking dog. One of the best running backs, I think, in the country this year, obviously. Yeah. But going into the draft now, and he performed this week at the Senior Bowl, but going into the draft process, I think his size is one thing that is kind of holding him back, but his Senior Bowl performance did help him like crazy, because there was 2 days of practice where I sat there and just stood by the running backs, watching them, every drill, bag drills, cone drills, whatever it was, and compared to Ray Davis and Dejon Edwards and that other running back from Arizona, Cody Schrader had the quickest feet, was giving it all into I did not see him half-ass any rep. He went into it all in. Yeah. And that's what you need to do at the Senior Bowl, is even if you're good, but like even if you're a good performer already, like say like Bo Nix, you don't want to go in and not be giving all your effort, because the more effort you're going to show, those scouts are on watch and they love to see that.
Exactly. And I'm gonna go back to one guy on the national team that I really liked, and he had a big performance in the game, was Charles Smith-Wade from Washington State, the corner. He almost had a pick six. I think he had 2 picks in the game.
It should have been a pick six. It
really should have been. But he had a great week as well. But, yeah, going back to Cody Schrader, the story is incredible. One of the best running backs in the SEC. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And you got a chance to speak with him. He seemed like a pretty cool dude.
Oh, no. He was honestly one of the most humble dudes that I have ever met. And one of the questions that I asked him is about that walk-on, being a Division II transfer to walk-on, then being All-American. I was like, what motivates you? And he talked about how football is his piece. He talked about every time he steps out on the football field, regardless of what's going on, regardless of stress or anxiety or anger levels or whatever it may be, football is what gives him his piece. And just speaking with him, I was like, people were saying before the Senior Bowl he was going to be like a 5th-round draft pick. As of right now, I don't see him going higher than 3 or 4 just because of running backs in the NFL. And there's also, this is a running back heavy draft class. You got to think there's also guys like Blake Corum in the draft.
There's not going to be a guy that goes first round. If there is, it might be late, and it might be Blake Corum.
Yeah.
And he wasn't there. I think he got invited, and he ultimately didn't go. But, yeah.
But, he still boosted his draft stock. Yeah. And that's one dude that I think could be one of those late, like even if he does go 5th round, 4th round, whatever it may be, I could see him.
Some running backs surprise and go in the 2nd round,
yeah,
2nd and 3rd round.
He could, but I could see him blossoming on whatever team he goes to just because of how motivated he really is. And he performed really well at the Senior Bowl, and I was happy to see that. But
the guy that stood out to me, and he has obviously stood out to a lot of other people because he was the MVP of the game. He was voted the best quarterback on the American team. Was Spencer Rattler. back in Spencer Rattler's days at Oklahoma, I was not a big fan of him. I didn't like his cockiness. There was something about him, and it was not just me. It was a lot of other people that just turned you off. Like he looked like a cocky dude. He was a Heisman favorite for like 2 years in a row. Never really panned out. He was making mistakes left and right on the field, like throwing interceptions, costing his team games. But then he goes to South Carolina. He gets more. He finds himself. He becomes a lot more humble. And then I got a chance to speak with him for maybe like a minute or two at the Senior Bowl, and man, he was so cool. He was humble. You know, I asked him about the adversity he's gone through in his career, and he said that's just the way it is, especially being a quarterback. That you're going to go through these highs and lows. But he said he said he wouldn't change a thing, and you know, and he had a really good week of practice. I thought, you know, his feet looked great. His he knew where he was going with the ball. And one thing that me and Jake, you know, we got to see Jake and Blaine last week in the Senior Bowl. It was great to see those guys again. Great dudes. Anyway, I'm gonna try to have them on sometime this spring and in the summer. But one thing we were talking about is with the quarterbacks and receivers, a lot of these guys you don't have chemistry with. You don't. I mean, you're throwing it to them for the first time, maybe second time, maybe because of a camp or something in high school. But you're throwing to them for the first time, and it's really hard to gel within 3 days of just of a 2-hour practice. It's really hard to really gel.
Build
with
that
receivers.
chemistry.
The only guy he probably had he had chemistry with was probably Leggett, and that's just because they're on the same team.
Yep.
And so for him to, I mean, for Spencer Rattler to look very comfortable, you know, he knew where he was going with the ball. Had a great Senior Bowl game. I was just really impressed with Spencer Rattler, and he might be an early day 2 guy in my opinion. Sometimes there's always a quarterback that gets surprisingly picked in the first round. Like I think a couple of years ago, I think it was like Kyle Trask. Maybe it was like the first pick of the second round or something.
Yeah.
But there's always a quarterback that gets surprisingly picked very early, and I don't think
that nobody expects.
I don't think he'll be picked in the first round. But I could see him going before J.J. McCarthy.
Oh, I could see that too.
Or Michael Pratt, and Michael Pratt had a good week as well. But I was really impressed with Spencer Rattler.
No, I agree, and I think that this American team had more guys that kind of stood out than the national team as well. Because then going to the defensive side of the ball, there was a couple defensive linemen that really stood out. Obviously, Tavondre Sweat was one of them.
And Darius Robinson from Mizzou.
Darius Robinson as well. But then also Braden Fisk, man.
Oh, yeah.
Braden Fisk, I got to interview him and Tavondre Sweat.
Dude had to switch teams day of the game.
Yeah, he did have to switch teams. But Braden Fisk really stood out, too, against, like, the American team. I think their offensive line-wise, they had the better offensive line group, too.
Of course.
And whatever you say, of course. But, I mean, Braden Fisk, though, man, his swim moves, his cuts, his ability to move his hips and stuff for a nearly 300. He's like 6 foot, 300 pounds. He was moving. He was moving, and he was getting past some of these huge offensive linemen like Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma and a couple other big guys. He was getting past them with ease, and he was a super cool guy to talk to. But then obviously a guy that I think even before the Senior Bowl was already looking good going into the draft, and then now after the Senior Bowl, Tavondre Sweat is a freaking behemoth, man. Watching him do one-on-ones, literally he was doing one-on-ones, pancaking offensive linemen. I know usually it's the offensive linemen that do the pancaking, but he was throwing guys on their butts left and right, and it got to the point during one-on-ones that they had to double-team him. They said, all right, everyone else is still doing one-on-ones. We're putting 2 offensive linemen on Tavondre, and he was still getting past them. You're talking about a guy that's 6'7", 362 pounds, almost 400 pounds. With the size and athleticism that he has, literally every NFL scout that was around us on the field, they were buzzing about Tavondre. I could hear them talking. They were like, holy crap, Tavondre Sweat this, Tavondre Sweat that. And literally when he was at his table for interviews, everybody was around Tavondre Sweat. And I'm like, that's a dude that I don't remember the last time we have seen a defensive lineman this big and this athletic. Like,
and then, I mean, 2 guys and back to the skill position that really stood out to me. One, you know, was a guy we already knew about. Ladd McConkey, you know, at Georgia, he always found a way to get open, even against the best competition. He always found ways to get open. Same thing with the Senior Bowl. He was cooking every DB on the field. He was even in the Senior Bowl game. He was open, and I guess Joe Milton or whoever was throwing the ball wasn't finding him. I think he's somehow a first rounder. I mean, I already thought maybe he was a second rounder, but I think some team just surprises everyone and takes him in the first round. Maybe the late first round, like the 20s to 32 range. I think
Yeah.
like a team, like it could be like a team like at 32, like the Chiefs, who could use a receiver like that, especially maybe if the Travis Kelce buzz about him retiring, or whatever the case may be. I mean, somebody's going to take this kid in the first round. I think he's going to be an absolute stud. He gets compared to Cooper Kupp.
Exactly, and that was one of the things I was going to say.
And Hunter Renfrow.
Exactly, literally after I think day 1 or day 2 of the Senior Bowl, there were so many articles where like Ladd McConkey is super comparable to Cooper Kupp, and I asked him that in one of the interviews too. And Ladd McConkey's like comparing me to the Triple Crown winner. He's like who's going to complain about that? Yeah. And he was like, you're talking about a kid that went from no Division I offers to Kirby finding him at a high school basketball game in northern Georgia. He talked about that too, and just getting a chance at Georgia. Crazy to see where he's at now and the potential he has in the league. Literally, it's super comparable to Hunter Renfrow and Cooper Kupp story-wise.
Yeah.
And
then there was another guy too that I don't think a lot of people mentioned. I can't remember his name, but I know where he's a tight end for Kansas State. And I remember watching this guy on day 3. They were doing red zone coverage, and like it was like 7-on-7 red zone, and then they also did full team red zone.
It was Ben Sinnott.
Yes, him. Ben Sinnott was cooking the safeties that were trying to cover him. He was cooking the linebackers that were trying to cover him. I remember there was a couple Georgia DBs. I think it was Javon Bullard and the Smith guy. I can't remember his first name, like Tyree Smith or whatever. He was cooking them. I think he had a really good Senior Bowl. I mean, as far as tight ends go, there's Brock Bowers, who's probably gonna be the only one that goes in the first round. But then you got Jaheim Bell and Kate Stover, who wasn't there, AJ Barner, who was on the national team, and then you got this kid from Kansas State who I thought had a great week. And so I remember him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy to see how important the Senior Bowl really is nowadays. How going to the Senior Bowl, having the opportunity to play, and even just practicing for a couple of days, even if you don't play in the game, it could immensely increase your draft stock.
And every rep matters because the reps are limited, because there are a lot of guys that are there to get opportunities. I mean, every rep matters for every guy getting an opportunity. And once again, I'm going to reference Jake in his show because he makes so many good points. He was now that you can invite juniors, it kind of stiffens the competition a little bit even more because a lot of the juniors getting invited are the better ones.
Exactly. And so it's like, all right, for these seniors, this is your only shot. And like when you're looking at, say, like the running back room or the quarterback room, like looking at the quarterback room for the American team, there's 4 quarterbacks. Like that means you're splitting reps for scrimmages, all that stuff. And then you look at receivers, defense linemen, there's even more guys in those groups. And it's like you have to make every rep matter. Every time a ball gets thrown to a receiver or a running back gets a hand, like you have to literally make the most out of everything. Like,
and there's one more guy I'm going to mention on my winners list. And then we can get into losers in just a minute. And I'm a little bit biased because he goes to school here. The only guy that got invited from South Alabama to participate in this year's Senior Bowl was Carter Bradley. And I think he handled the process very well. Talking to him on day 1, he seems like he was having a lot of fun. And being at a school like South, you don't get to face the competition that Spencer Rattler has faced or Joe Milton has faced, or Bo Nix and Michael Penix and Sam Hartman. Now, he's in the same boat with Michael Pratt, but I think Michael Pratt still faced a little bit more competition than Carter did. But I thought, for a guy coming from South Alabama, not going up against the best competition, now going up against mostly, because he's on the American team, mostly SEC guys, I thought he had a fairly good week. I thought, I think he, I was always iffy about whether or not he'd get drafted this year, just because I thought there was a lot of quarterbacks that probably and should go ahead of him. But I feel like Carter could be a day 3 pick, and I think his ties to the NFL will help him a little bit. His dad being the defensive coordinator for the Colts. Hell, who knows? The Colts might pick him.
Yeah, you never know. I mean,
I feel like he could be. I don't want to say the next Brock Purdy because that's a once in a.
Yeah, that's
a once. I don't.
That's like a Brady situation there, but
that's a once in a blue moon thing. but I feel like he could do good things in the league. I feel like he could, if he's behind the right system, say he backs up. Say for some reason the Chiefs take him in like the 7th round.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Mahomes,
you come in for an injury or something like that, and you get that opportunity. Yeah.
Or you back up like Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence. You back up one of these guys that has been in the league for a few years, or say like you back up a veteran like I don't know, like Lamar Jackson or somebody that can give you a lot of insight. I feel like he could be a great backup in the league, and I think maybe even a very serviceable starter.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Definitely can make things work, but and shout out to Carter, man. He did have a hell of a week, but going into underperformers, I think you already know I only have like 2 guys that I really need to say, but they're both offensive guys, and Sam Hartman is one of them.
And then Joe Milton is the other.
Yeah, Joe Milton as well. But watching Sam Hartman specifically, obviously the quarterbacks are going to stand out. They're going to draw a lot of attention. But Sam Hartman was in a position where he needed to perform well. Not that he had a horrible college career, but he was in college for 6-7 years between Wake Forest and Notre Dame.
His age is already like a thing he's getting.
Exactly. And also his height, his size. I mean, he's not as small as some other guys that are in the league. Bryce Young. But he's still pretty small.
He's older than Bryce
Young. Yeah, I know, trust me, I'm aware. But
Plus, your boy C.J. Stroud defended him the other day.
I know.
So,
hey, I know.
So I don't want to hear that.
I wasn't talking. I was just saying size-wise.
I'm
was
sorry.
saying size.
I had to defend my boy Bryce.
I was saying size-wise. Bryce is a small guy. So is Sam Hartman. But the fact of the matter is, Sam Hartman was overthrowing and underthrowing guys left and right. It became consistent where it was rare to – not that it was rare, but it wasn't that often where he was hitting guys on the money. And it kind of sucked to see because sitting there watching him, you're like, you want to see him perform well. And then, boom, he's got a running back. And 7-on-7, there's not even, like, you got to think he's not even getting pass rushed. And you got him underthrowing a running back in the flats. And I was sitting there with Tanner, one of our buddies, watching Sam play. And we're like, man, like these are throws that you need to hit, and it's making you look a hell of a lot worse when you're not even playing against a pass rush that's coming at you, or when it was even just offense, like just bones, just literally just the offense going up against nobody.
And Sam Hartman was a guy that kind of disappointed me towards the end of the year or end of the season, this past season. Notre Dame got off to such a great start. They beat USC. They beat Clemson.
They barely lost to Ohio State in the thriller. They lost. They did beat USC.
Did they beat Clemson?
No, they lost to Clemson. They lost to
My
Clemson.
bad.
If
there's a Clemson fan watching this, I'm sorry. But they beat USC. They beat another bigger team early.
They beat Duke after that was the game that Riley Leonard got hurt, and Sam Hartman showed a lot of class that game. He's a very classy guy, but. He did,
and he was feisty against Ohio State. Kept him in the game, and just couldn't get it done. I feel like Sam Hartman it wasn't just Sam Hartman. Notre Dame as a whole, they kind of just fell off towards the end of the year, and it really I think it was a little bit disappointing because I thought, watching Sam Hartman begin the year. Now, granted, their competition was a little bit easier to begin the year, minus that Ohio State game. Their competition was, but I thought Sam Hartman was bringing a lot more to the pass game, and I was a little bit wrong on that. Early it did, but it just kind of fell off. So, but Sam will probably still get a shot.
Yeah, no, I think he will too, but I do not see him as a starter.
If he doesn't pan out in the league, he can definitely, according to the women around here, he can have a modeling career.
Dude, hell, he could be in Head and Shoulders commercials for the rest of his life, man. I'm surprised that he never had a NIL deal with that. I was actually talking to one of the guys that worked for NFL Network, one of their camera guys. He was talking about it, and he was saying like how it's just funny. Like think about how much money Trevor Lawrence would have made in college at Clemson if there was NIL then for his hair, man.
Well, Joy Polamalu figured that out pretty quickly.
Exactly.
I remember the commercials he had. They were funny as hell.
But dude, you got to think. For Sam Hartman, he's probably a step above Head and Shoulders. He'd probably be like a Paul Mitchell type of guy or something like that.
Old Spice,
Old Spice. We'll see. Or I don't know what he's gonna do with his career if it doesn't pan out in the NFL. But another guy that kind of stood out to me too, real quick, offensively, Also on the national team, who was playing with Sam Hartman. Offensive lineman Kingsley, I don't know how to say his last name, the dude out of BYU. He, like, there wasn't an offensive lineman that really stood out that underperformed other than him. I can't say his last name, Kingsley from BYU. If you know who I'm talking about, you know exactly who I'm talking about. But there was multiple times when pass rush was coming, and he gave up multiple back-to-back what would have been sacks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you cannot do that, specifically against Adisa Isaac. Adisa Isaac out of Penn State was bullying the hell out of him a couple reps in a row. And it's just like those are times when it's like you don't want to let that happen. And as a big guy who was, I wouldn't say was highly recruited going into the Senior Bowl or was being looked at a lot, but he really hurt his draft stock a lot. And BYU is kind of known, I feel like, to have some bigger offensive line and defensive line guys in the league that are usually later round draft picks. But he hurt his draft stock a lot. That's all I got to say about him.
I feel like a guy that also in the secondary, Kalen King, I thought he –
Yep.
I wouldn't say he was bad the entire time, but there were definitely times when he go against Roman Wilson, Javon Baker, and even I think a couple times against Brennan Rice where he just got and Ricky Pearsall, however you say his last name, where he just got cooked, man, and it wasn't even close. I feel like, and we understand it's hard being a corner, being asked to do multiple things.
Specifically in one-on-ones. And I know one-on-ones are hard. They're hard for the corner because a receiver can make one quick move and they're gone.
And it throws you off.
Yeah, and it does throw you off. But Kalen King, specifically in one-on-ones, was slow off the snap, which he can't be, man. He just seemed delayed. Maybe he was fatigued. I don't know what was going on. But man was just not as quick as he really was in college. And at Penn State, I feel like this past year and in the years before, he showed a lot more than he did in the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and I'm going to go to the American team. One guy, I'm going to go to the American team now. The main guy that stood out to me was Joe Milton. I mean, I understand Joe Milton is all you want as far as size in the quarterback. He's got the arm strength. He can throw it 100 yards, 200, maybe 200 yards. Who knows? But I mean, the guy, and I spoke to him a couple times before practices. He's a pretty cool guy. I'm not gonna drag him, but I mean, he was just inaccurate, man. He looked frantic a few times, especially during the game. He threw a couple picks in the game, and he was just the accuracy was not there. You got to, and this is one thing people knock Jalen Milroe for. Is you got to be able to hit the layups before you can go for the dunk or go for the three-pointer. You got to be able to hit the easy shots first.
Speaking of hitting the layups, there was at one point when Joe Milton in the American offense were running Skelly, so against no defense, and he completed like an 8-yard slant route to someone, and he did a backflip after it. And I was like, I was just like, all right, I understand that was cool, but it was a little excessive for just like you said, hitting a layup. But
yeah, I mean, you just gotta. And it was stuff that it was things that he had problems with at Tennessee, being able to hit the underneath route or the crosser. I mean, just little things like that, and that can, and being able to hit throws in tight windows is going to be a big thing for the NFL. And I don't know, man. He just didn't have it for me. But and then I'm trying to see if there's any other guy. I mean, other than that, not really. I feel like there were a couple of receivers that maybe underwhelmed. Johnny Wilson, the thing about him is just it's hard for him to kind of get separation at his size. He's not that explosive, but he can't be like that 50-50 guy where if you need somebody to absolutely go up and get a jump ball, he's tall enough to where he could.
I mean, he showed that at Florida State. So.
He showed that at Senior Bowl too. So I mean, I don't know, but there was not a whole lot of guys that underperformed. But I mean, there were a lot of guys that showed out. It was just that's just the thing with Senior Bowl. I mean, and like what we mentioned earlier, it's hard to gel, especially after so many weeks after the season has ended, and then
you just got to come out and play again,
and try to be at your best. I mean, not just even play, but try to be at your best, even like better than practice reps or game reps during the season. This is an opportunity for you to be at your best, and so, but I mean, and again, But I mean, this is just the beginning, and a lot of these players will have another chance at the end of the month. The combine, it's not the same. It's not nearly the same thing because they're not putting on shoulder pads and helmets. But still, they get to show their size, their strength, their speed. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, we'll see. But I mean, It was a blast being at the Senior Bowl. We're blessed to be able to have that opportunity to be on the field,
And
be
we're
up and close.
gonna try to post some of these interviews.
Yeah,
we
we're
got,
gonna get some stuff on Instagram Reels and on TikTok
YouTube
ASAP.
Shorts.
Yeah, everything ASAP because it was cool, man. And some of these players, you would not believe how humble some of these guys were and how cool they were to speak to.
My favorite guy to speak to was either Bo Nix or Spencer Rattler, but there was a bunch of other guys too.
Yeah.
Like I got to speak to Liatu Latu, Will Reichard. That was a pleasure. I got all three Bama guys. Jalen Simpson from Auburn, who I'm now a fan of because he was very camera friendly to me when I was taking pictures, and he was a pretty nice dude when I was interviewing. But man,
Yeah,
it was just a blast.
It definitely was. But I mean, besides Senior Bowl, let's get into another big bowl that's this weekend. That's even bigger than the Senior Bowl.
It's the Super Bowl, man.
Yeah, I mean, let's get right into that in segment 2, man, and give some predictions and some outlook, some preview, man.
Before we dive into the Super Bowl, we want to thank our other sponsor, Now Fitness. Now Fitness is a gym and fitness center based in Groveville, Alabama. Recently expanded to Saraland. They do personal training, group sessions with CrossFit, and other workouts, and help local athletes get in their best shape. Call 251-269-3065 for more. Once again, can't thank them and 25 Pool Works for everything they've done for us. And, man, Chiefs versus Niners.
Yeah,
dude.
I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend trying to be
Rematch of 2020.
Yeah, rematch of 2020, but trying to be the first back-to-back Super Bowl winners in over 20 years.
Since the Patriots.
Yep, and man, this is going to be a hell of a game in Vegas. It's going to be wild. Obviously, there's lots of speculation with if the Chiefs win and Travis Kelce crap and Taylor Swift.
I'm going to limb here. A lot of people think this might be an offensive game. I think it's going to be a little bit of a defensive game.
No, I would agree.
I think of like a 2014, maybe 24-17 type thing because while both of these offenses are very good, but these defenses are really the strengths of these teams, especially the Chiefs, where we're in a year where their offense has not been what we've seen in recent years. You lose Tyreek Hill. Some of these receivers have kind of underperformed. Kadarius Toney, nobody knows what's going on with him. But then you got Rashee Rice. You got MVS. Still got Travis Kelce,
Yep.
but still, it seemed like Kelce had kind of regressed a little bit this year. Not because of Taylor Swift. We're not going to talk about that. But just because he is getting older, there's even talks of retirement for him after the game if they win. So this is not the Chiefs team offensively that we've recently seen, but Isaiah Pacheco, Patrick Mahomes, that offensive line, they've been finding ways to get it done in the postseason. And it's really the defense for the Chiefs and the Niners that will be getting the spotlight here.
Yeah, no, most definitely. But I think one crucial thing, obviously you look at the Niners defense, one big name that stands out, Nick Bosa. But someone who needs to perform after the NFC Championship games, Chase Young, getting a lot of hate for lack of hustle. I feel like that happens, and I mean, I'm not trying to justify his lack of hustle because that one specific play, it was pretty bad.
I saw
that. We all saw it, and a lot of people bashed him for that. A lot of people were upset about that.
It's just scripted.
Yeah, it may be.
Scripted that way.
I also think that Chase Young is at a point where he has had lots of injuries in recent years, and I think sometimes he may have and I'm not trying to justify him underperforming and being lazy, but I think that he may not always give his all into every single rep because of the fact that he may be worried about tearing another ACL or going through another injury like that. Because I'm not gonna lie, Chase Young is a fragile athlete. Like I have a feeling that he could get hurt. I don't wish injury upon anybody, and I don't want him to get hurt. He's an Ohio State guy. I have his autograph in my room. Love the dude. Loved him at Ohio State, but I have a feeling that he could still be really fragile, and he's afraid of risking another injury. But
maybe so, but the Niners are going to need their pass rush in this game. Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Kinlaw inside. They're going to need their pass rushers because one thing that teams have struggled to do against Patrick Mahomes, especially in the postseason, has been able to get to him. I mean, even when they do get to him, he gets the ball out so quickly that he's able to draw a roughing the passer or a flag or it doesn't affect him. I mean, I think he's like one of the least sacked quarterbacks in the postseason ever.
Yep.
And it's insane.
They need to get to him.
And that's going to be a big key is can you somehow get to Patrick Mahomes, disrupt him, get him off his game.
And you know what's crazy? The last time, so obviously they met in the Super Bowl a few years back, but the last time they played each other in the regular season, in the 2022 season, so basically a year ago, a little over a year ago, Patrick Mahomes went 25 of 34, throwing for 423 yards and 3 touchdowns. And they won. A big time win by over 20 points. And it's like Patrick Mahomes surely could have that type of game. And, like, he's been in these situations before. I don't think – and I'm not to say that anyone on the Niners are nervous, but the one thing I'm worried about for the Niners is Brock Purdy. And especially, like, I don't know. I know he has the weapons around him, and I'm not bashing him at all. I know there's a lot of people that don't think he's a legitimate quarterback. I think that he's fine, but I don't know how he fares against this Chiefs defense. And
we're gonna see the Chiefs defense, especially in the postseason, has been very good up until this point. They were able to bottle up Lamar Jackson, which was very impressive. I also think the Ravens' game plan was just stupid, but that's just me. But I don't know. I feel like in the last 2 games the Niners have played, they got off to a slow start against both the Packers and the Lions, but then in the second half, and both these teams are very good at adjusting in the second half, getting those first half jitters out of the way, adjusting to what they need to. They're really good at it. Both these teams are really good at that. And so how they're going to adjust to each other in the second half, I think, is the biggest key to the game. But Brock Purdy in the second half in the postseason has been really good. He's made plays with his legs that were crucial, especially against the Lions. I know there were two big runs in like the third quarter he had that if he didn't bully his way to getting yards and getting a first down, they probably wouldn't have scored. And so, I think Brock Purdy will have a pretty good game. To me, it's about getting the run game going for Christian McCaffrey, getting him going. I think a key piece is Deebo Samuel, especially in scoring situations, especially the red zone, because you can line him up in the backfield. You can do jet sweeps. You can do all this different stuff with him, so he can be a valuable piece, especially in the red zone when you need a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, but like, just in all honesty, what better 2 teams to play in the Super Bowl than I know everyone thought it was going to be Niners, Ravens, but both of these teams they're so elite. Looking offensive and defensive wise, just like naming off specific players on both teams, they have athletes, and this is going to be a very athletic game.
And this is not the Super Bowl that majority of people wanted, but I mean it's still going to be a great game. These 2 teams are like you said, very elite, just very well sound.
Coached by 2 insane coaches, Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid. Like it doesn't get much better. But
I think Bustin' with the Boys mentioned this at one of those Super Bowl media days. The last time a Shanahan won a Super Bowl, he had a McCaffrey on his team.
Yeah, and
that was Mike Shanahan with the Broncos.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think obviously I want the Niners to win. I think obviously most of America wants the Niners to win.
I'm picking the Niners. I'm sorry, and it's not even Taylor Swift. I don't really care that much about Taylor Swift. I mean, it is what it is. I think she's a phenomenal singer. I like some of her music, but I'm not a Swiftie. I am looking forward to one of her songs coming out on her new album coming out, and I think she's one of the most talented artists of all time. I want to put that out there, but I don't give a rat's ass about the relationship. They can be whatever they want to be. Just
keep it out of football.
Well, don't keep it out of football, but just keep it to a minimum.
All right.
But I'm picking the Niners because I don't like the Chiefs. I'm a Broncos fan. I don't like the Chiefs. I got to go with the 49ers here. I'm going with the 49ers 28-24.
28-24. That's close. I'm going to have to pick the 49ers too, and my pick's also going to be close. Man, 28-24, that's a good score. I'm going to go 21-20 in overtime. I'm keeping it low as well, and I think the Niners pull it out in overtime. But real quick, I have a question for you. Do you think Patrick Mahomes gets over or under his passing yards? It's 262.5. Against the Niners defense, does Patrick Mahomes throw for 263 yards to hit the over?
I think so. I think the The Niners are a little bit short in the secondary. I think that's where they could be hurt the most. But I don't know. It's tough. It's tough, but I think so.
I think so too.
All right, I got another question for you, and you probably know where I'm going with this. This is probably in a sports book somewhere, but who knows?
It actually is. It is.
All right. If the Chiefs somehow win, does Travis Kelce get up on that stage and propose to Taylor Swift?
He only gets up on that stage and proposes if the Gatorade color is orange. I'm telling you right now, if that Gatorade color is orange, he's proposing. And watch that happen. If the Gatorade color is orange, he's going to propose. If it's not, if it's orange, I mean, we'll see.
What does it matter?
Hey, I'm telling you right now, that's the lock. Gatorade color orange, Travis Kelce proposing to Taylor Swift. And if you hit Chiefs money line on that parlay has got to be insane payout odds. I bet you
Lord.
Marco Pimani from Chicago, who's a big-name sports bettor, I bet you he's going to get on top of that. I'm going to have to DM him and have him get on top of that, too.
The Super Bowl is always such a fun time because you got these unusual bets like the Gatorade color or
the national anthem over-under.
The national anthem over-under. Who
last year with Chris Stapleton.
The coin toss.
No.
I think who's doing the national anthem this year? I think it's
this year will be
it's a woman, ain't it?
I'm not too sure. It's Reba McEntire, actually.
Reba.
So yeah, I think that might.
I think it'll go over.
I don't know.
I think she could be more of a slow.
Well, that was Chris Stapleton last year. Chris Stapleton went way over.
The country singers usually are.
But I feel Reba McEntire is more uptight, and she sings a little faster. I feel like so.
Speaking of country singers, rip Toby Keith, man.
Yeah, no, that was heartbreaking, man. I was heartbroken by that. But real quick,
and Carl Weathers too. Apollo Creed, Chubbs, Grief Cargo, and The Mandalorian, one of my favorite actors of all time.
Well, real quick, they updated the over-under for the national anthem. It's set at 90.5 seconds. So that means it's either going to be over 1 minute and 30.5 seconds or under.
I'm taking it over.
I don't know, man.
Reba, and obviously we're not betting because it's illegal in the state of Alabama.
I don't bet anyway. So
change that, Meemaw, please. Anyway, if I were to bet on it, say if I were to go to a different state and bet on it,
Biloxi
or Pensacola, I would take the over. I would take the over.
All right, whatever you say. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm saying she's going to stay under. I really do, but this is just stupid talk about the Super Bowl. We're not even talking about players or anything anymore. Man, let's just get into
No. Also, what commercial are you looking the most forward to? I'm gonna go ahead and say my favorite that they've already kind of released.
The Paramount one.
The Paramount one.
That's like the only one I've seen so far.
But they're also supposed to be like releasing trailers to like Deadpool 3 and a couple other movies. You always gotta be excited about all this kind of stuff when it comes to Super Bowl time.
One thing I'm looking forward to, Doritos, because Doritos did announce like a month ago that they're coming out with like 4 or 5 new flavors of Doritos.
Oh yeah, we talked
They
about
are going to have some crazy type of commercial. I feel like Doritos and Mountain Dew are two companies, and even Snickers sometimes, just have the most wild and bizarre commercials. Last year, though, commercials were very underwhelming. I was not happy with last year's Super Bowl commercials.
And also you got the halftime show. You got Usher and
Usher. What's your favorite Usher song? Mine's Yeah.
Gotta be
Yeah.
It's gotta be that's the most notable, I guess. I don't know.
It's gonna burn for me to say this. It's coming from my heart. No, I'm just playing. Sorry, I'm getting it. Dude, I love Usher, man.
We're in the Super Bowl mood. I mean, it's the last football game of the year. I mean, you got the UFL coming up, but real football of a game of the 2023 season, 2023-2024 season. We're not ready for it to end. But man,
it hurts. It hurts. We're almost at the end of it. I mean, the off season's a fun part too, but it's just anticipating next year now. And
I know. I mean,
but
I mean, it's already starting to kind of go by kind of fast because it's already February. By the way, Ryan Williams is officially Alabama Crimson Tide. He signed this week. Thank the Lord. Nick Saban is joining Game Day. That's going to be great, especially. He's going to be part of the draft coverage this year for Game Day. That'll be great.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm pumped for college football season to already come back, especially with all that Ohio State has done through the portal and whatnot. We already talked about that last week. Shout out to everybody, all my Buckeye fans, too, that watched that episode, that commented, that interacted a little bit, too, because, go Bucks. But, they can't wait for this Super Bowl. Don't want the season to be over yet, but.
The season comes and it goes, so.
It does indeed. Not looking forward to this offseason. Looking forward to the draft though, and we're gonna have a lot of draft coverage too coming up as well.
We're gonna try to even do something on draft night. Maybe go live or something, or have maybe a chat or something.
Go live from Buffalo Wild Wings. No, I'm just playing.
We could do that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're definitely gonna get into it for sure. But I mean, man, Niners hopefully Super Bowl champions by next week after rewatching this episode. Fingers crossed. If you're a Chiefs fan and you're watching this or you want the Chiefs to win, I don't like you. That's all I got to say. But and comment below how you feel about the Taylor Swift situation, because I know there's some Chiefs fans that really don't like it, and there's other ones that do. So I want to know.
All right. Well, we thank all of y'all for listening. Go subscribe, like, comment.
Or don't.
Or don't.
I'm just playing. We would really appreciate it.
Like we said earlier in the episode, we got some Senior Bowl content coming, interviews, reels, shorts, TikTok. We're going to try to post those by the next episode. We're going to try to have them all up. So just be on the lookout for those, and we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, thanks for watching episode 41, y'all.